Hello, you're live with BBC News. The Democratic Republic of Congo says Rwanda is ignoring calls for a ceasefire after M23 rebels seized a second city. The government says Rwanda is violating the DRC's territorial integrity. The fall of the city of Bukavu gives the M23 total control of Lake Kivu following its capture of Goma at the end of January, and has highlighted growing fears about the escalation of the war in the mineral-rich region. We can now speak to Fred Bauma, the Executive Director of Buteli, a research institute based in Kinshasa, focusing on politics and governance in the DRC. Thanks for joining us on BBC News. What's your assessment of what's happening on the battlefield? Because what we're hearing is reports of government forces simply retreating when challenged by the rebels.
Yes, what we've seen on the battlefield the last weeks, if we can say, is the retreats of FRDC, the Congolese army, but also of the local militia. There was Lendo and the Burundian force that was supporting them all the way from the mountains in Kalehe in South Kivu to Bukavu. And now the M23 has reached Bukavu, and it's continuously controlling. And we're hearing they're also thinking of putting an administration in Bukavu as they did in North Kivu.
And just to take a step back, these are incredibly mineral-rich parts of the DRC, North Kivu and South Kivu, places that have minerals that we use in many of our devices, like mobile phones, laptops. Now, the US, the EU, the UN Security Council are all calling for a ceasefire in the eastern DRC. That hasn't worked so far. So what can be done?
I mean, so far there have been calls for ceasefire, not only by the US and Europe, but also by the SADC and East African Community country recently. But there is no enough pressure on both parties to cease the attack, especially on M23 and Rwanda. And without that, it's less likely that there will be any ceasefire in coming days. And I think M23 is slowly, and AFC is slowly reaching its objective of controlling a large part of North Kivu and South Kivu. And unfortunately, without a proper response from the Congo's government and the international community, this may go in other provinces as well.
Fred, as we're speaking, I just want to let our viewers know that we also have live pictures on the screens at the moment. This is from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and this is the plane that is carrying Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State. So he's just arriving there in Saudi Arabia, and of course he'll have key meetings, crucially those meetings between US officials and Russian officials about ending the war in Ukraine. He'll also be talking about the war in Gaza and the future for the territory. Fred, just going back to you and the situation there in Eastern Congo, you're from Goma, the major city of Eastern Congo that has been taken over by M23. What are you hearing from people there about the impact of the war?
And the impacts of the war has been dramatic on populations of Goma. As you know, before M23 seized Goma, Goma was almost under siege for about a year. So cost of commodity increased significantly. There were almost 800,000 refugee displacement people around Goma. So the life of those people and Goma citizen was also equally difficult. Now the banking system in Goma is not functional yet. People have difficulty to have access to the small economy that they have in the bank. Even if the daily life is starting slowly, but there's still a lot of issues to resolve and a lot of uncertainty, especially for people who do not know where all this is going. So yeah, it has been a tough year. and it's continued to be a tough time for people who are in Goma and other places.
Fred Bauma, political analyst in Kinshasa, thank you so much for joining us on BBC News.
Thank you, Kathy.